When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was Papa. He was sitting beside my bed, wearing a cozy robe the color of red apples. His long golden hair looked a little messy, like he had been sitting there for a long time. His red eyes stared at me quietly, and when he noticed I was awake, he leaned a little closer. "You're awake?" he said in that deep rumbly voice of his. I nodded, still sleepy, and rubbed my eyes. Everything felt warm and soft and nice. Without thinking too much, I climbed out from under the blankets and hugged him tightly. Papa smelled like fresh winter air and something like cinnamon. "Happy birthday, Papa," I mumbled against his chest. I heard him laugh a little low and soft before he kissed the top of my head. "Happy birthday to you too, dear," he said. I pulled back and looked up at him. Papa was smiling. Not the scary smile he gave other people, but the real one he only showed me. "So you're 4 now," he said, tucking a piece of my hair behind my ear. I grinned so big my cheeks hurt and held up all my fingers. "Yes. 4. I said proudly. Papa chuckled and patted my head. His big hand was heavy, but it made me feel special. "I see. Growing up fast, aren't you?" he said. "Emichum." I bobbed my head up and down. I puffed up my chest like a brave knight. "Soon I'll be big and scary like you." Papa raised one eyebrow and it made him look funny. "Scary?" "Yep," I said, nodding very seriously. "I'll stomp my foot and everyone will run away screaming, 'Oh no! The princess is mad.'" I threw my arms in the air to show how dramatic it would be. Papa made a weird sound like he was trying not to laugh. He coughed into his hand and gave me a look. "Is that so?" "Yes," I said happily. "And if they don't listen, I'll make them sit outside in the cold for 5 hours. Just like you." Papa blinked. "Who told you that?" "I heard it," I said proudly. "Sir Ravik said, the Emperor is scarier than winter itself." I wiggled 2 fingers in the air. "So I'll be scarier than 2 winters." Papa stared at me like I had grown another head. Then he sighed. A big dramatic sigh like adults always do when they're pretending they're not proud. "I see my dear daughter wants to be like me. How unusual," he said with a smirk tugging at his lips. "I fear for the Empire's future." What's so bad about growing up like him anyway? Sure, he's a tyrant, but he's our tyrant. I didn't think anyone else could handle the Empire the way Papa did. He was the best emperor, and the best Papa. Grown-ups were really weird sometimes. I leaned against his chest, squishing my cheek into his warm robe. "I want to grow up just like you, Papa. You're my idol," I mumbled sleepily. "And you're really, really good at being scary too." That finally made Papa laugh. A real, proper laugh that rumbled from his chest and made me giggle too. Wow, look at him. He looked so handsome when he laughed. Too bad he always said he wanted to stay single forever. Now if I didn't protect him, who would? He patted my head again, his palm big and warm. "Here I thought I was raising a sweet, gentle little princess," he teased, resting his chin lightly on my head. "I am gentle," I huffed, poking his chest with my tiny finger. "Gentle to people I like. Scary to people I don't." Papa chuckled and ruffled my hair until it stuck up in every direction like a fluffy bird's nest. I didn't mind. I just hugged him tighter. Today was our birthday. And nothing made me happier than celebrating it with Papa. Every year Papa made sure my birthday felt special. Even though we shared the same birthday, he always acted like it was my day more than his. He'd cancel important meetings, scold ministers who dared to mention work, and spend the whole day with me like I was the most important person in the Empire. Which, to be fair, I kind of am. Not just Papa. The whole Empire celebrated our birthday. The cities sparkled with decorations, flowers rained from the skies through floating magic, and sweets were handed out like water. It was like a festival every year just for the 2 of us. But this year was different. Because today, at the grand celebration, my elven grandfather would be attending for the first time. Not just him, more elves too. Real elves. Tall, graceful, glowy, and mysterious. The ones people whispered about, saying they never left their hidden forests. The ones who once stayed away from human kingdoms for centuries. But today the world would know the truth. That I was a quarter elf. And that Papa had formed a new alliance between our empire and the ancient kingdom of Nivali, the land of elves, mist, and moonlight. After my bloodline was revealed, everything changed. Instead of being a tyrant, Papa took my hand and stood tall before the nobles and foreign envoys. He declared the truth with pride in his eyes. And then, he invited the elves to the capital. Now the Empire and the Navali Kingdom were no longer strangers. They signed a special treaty, one that allowed elven scholars to enter the Empire freely and let our mages study ancient elven magic. In return, the Empire would provide military aid if the Navali borders were ever threatened and open trade routes through the western forests. It was a big deal. Like adults talking seriously and scribbling on scrolls kind of big. Papa called it a bridge between old blood and new. I called it super cool. I may only be 4 years old, but even I knew this birthday wasn't just about cake and presents anymore. It was about unity. It was about family. It was about showing the whole world that being a little different could be something more powerful. Now our empire would become the strongest with the help of the elves. As if Papa wasn't already scary enough. Now we had magic and elves on our side. Good luck to anyone who even thought about messing with us. Me. Oh, my grandpa, my elven grandpa, turned out to be very overprotective. Like really overprotective. If Papa was like a scary dragon guarding his treasure, Grandpa was like some ancient forest guardian who thought every breeze was a threat to his precious flower. Guess who the flower is? Me. I'm the flower. He visited the palace a lot now, officially for diplomatic relations, but unofficially to glare at anyone who got closer than 2 feet. Especially poor Osric. Now Osric wasn't just some random playmate of mine. He was Osric Regis, Grand Duke Regis's only son. The boy who would someday become the Grand Duke himself. The boy who, in the original story, was supposed to grow up handsome, strong, and, a little tragically heroic. Also the boy destined to betray me one day. Dun dun dun. I should probably stay away, but then who would I boss around? Being a tragic villainess in a novel can be exhausting. But right now, he was just a 10-year-old boy who had grown a little cold and serious, trying very hard to be a proper little gentleman. And Grandpa hated it. Not Osric himself, I guess, but the idea of Osric breathing too close to me. Every time Grandpa saw Osric and me playing together in the garden, he'd appear out of nowhere like some ancient doomed spirit. It was like the whole garden dropped 5 degrees whenever Grandpa appeared. And poor Osric, he would flinch so hard he nearly tumbled down the stone path. Nearly. Because no matter how many heart attacks Grandpa tried to give him, Osric still stood tall. The boy had grown brave for real. He didn't cower even when Grandpa's glare could have turned a stone statue to dust. If anything, Osric puffed out his little chest even more and flashed his brightest, most determined smile. "Your Excellency, it's a fine day, isn't it?" he'd say, like he didn't even feel the terrifying weight of Grandpa's stare burning holes into him. It was like Osric was saying without actually saying it, "Princess Lavinia is my friend and you can't stop us from meeting." Me. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. Grown-ups are so weird. But honestly, having a scary papa and a terrifying grandpa made me feel kind of invincible. Like I could do anything. And maybe, just maybe, they were right to be so protective. After all, I was the Empire's little princess. The bridge between old blood and new. The living proof that humans and elves could be stronger together. And today, the whole Empire would see it. I blinked. And blinked again. No, I wasn't hallucinating. The entire imperial palace was burning. Not literally with flames, thank goodness, but with something worse. Energy. Buzzing, crackling, sizzling energy filled every inch of the hallways, the gardens, and even the ceilings. The servants were running around like bees on sugar. The knights stood at attention like they expected a war to break out. The chefs were wheeling in carts of cakes so high that the top ones looked like they needed oxygen masks. Move, move, move. It's Her Highness's and His Majesty's birthday. If this cake leans 1 degree to the left, I swear on the Emperor's name, shouted one of our panicked chefs, waving a ladle like a sword. Who left the pink roses in the yellow flower section? We're not savages, people, screeched a gardener, his face redder than a tomato. Where's the golden ribbon? I need more golden ribbon. I will riot if there's no golden ribbon on this cake. Was that the head butler? Head butler Alton, the always calm, always dignified head butler Alton was now reduced to a man threatening a ribbon revolution. I clutched Marshmallow tighter in my arms, his soft fur squished against my cheek. Even this little divine kitten, who normally walked around like a dignified animal, was staring wide-eyed at the mayhem. Let's get to the room before we get burned by their energy, Marsher. I mumbled, shielding us both like a soldier marching through enemy fire. It was my birthday, sure. But was it too much to pray for a lazy afternoon nap and a quiet cuddle with Marshmallow? Apparently yes. Apparently, birthdays in the Imperial Palace meant chaos, panic and mild psychological warfare. Marshmallow let out a tiny, pitiful meow in agreement as if he too had seen the horrors of birthday preparations. But why did I feel like this year was going to be even grander and wilder than my first birthday? Let's go to our chamber, I sighed. I tiptoed, tried to tiptoe, through the madness and finally reached the doors of my chamber. Relief flooded me as I pushed them open. And then I froze. I blinked again. Dresses. Dresses everywhere. Pink, blue, gold, silver, puffy, glittery. It was like a rainbow had exploded, panicked, and then exploded again just to be sure. Even my poor bed was buried under a mountain of frills, lace, and sparkles. The air smelled suspiciously like perfume and fabric glue. I didn't even have time to scream internally because, "Happy birthday, princess." Morella popped up from behind a mountain of dresses like a jack-in-the-box, arms flailing and a giant grin plastered across her face. "Gaha!" I yelped, nearly dropping Marshmallow. Even Marsher, usually composed, fluffed up like a terrified dandelion and dug tiny claws into my sleeve. There was no escape. Before I could run and join the ribbon revolution outside, Morella lunged forward and scooped me into a hug, squeezing the air right out of me. "You're finally almost 4. Soon you'll be stomping all over the palace like a tiny empress." She cheered, spinning me around so fast my crown tilted sideways. Marshmallow dangled helplessly from my arms, his little legs stiff in betrayal. From somewhere behind the dress mountain, Nanny bustled out, her arms full of what looked suspiciously like 3 more dresses. Because obviously we didn't have enough already. "Happy birthday, my precious little princess," Nanny cried, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief like a proud mother hen. "You are the sun, the moon, and the stars today." I wasn't sure about stars. Right now I just wanted to be a quiet little pebble and hide under the bed. Morella, still vibrating with excitement, plopped 3 dresses onto the bed with a thud that shook the mountain of frills. "Now, my lady," she said grandly, "today is your most special day. You must choose your dress. Would you prefer?" She gestured dramatically to the mess behind her, where 2 maids were still dragging in even more options. The dresses shimmered under the sunlight like dangerous predators waiting to pounce. Morella yanked 2 from the pile and held them up like a market vendor selling very sparkly vegetables. "Option 1, she shouted. She lifted a monstrous pink dress so big it could fit 3 of me inside. It was so frilly it made my teeth hurt just looking at it. "Option 2. Morella switched hands, displaying a sleek, elegant blue gown that looked like it belonged to an ice princess. It even had tiny snowflake patterns embroidered at the hem. Nanny bustled over with a 3rd dress, a soft gold one that shimmered every time it moved. "Or perhaps this, my darling princess? The royal gold. A classic choice for a future empress." 3 dresses. 3 very sparkly, very dangerous dresses. And 3 very expectant pairs of eyes staring at me. I kicked my tiny feet thoughtfully, pretending to be deep in philosophical thought. In reality I was thinking something like, how do I escape this frill invasion without offending anyone and getting stuffed into option 1 by force? Behind them I could hear the muffled yelling of a worker running past the hallway. No, the swan ice sculpture goes on the left, you fool, the left. Her Highness deserves perfection. We ran out of pink flowers. Sacrifice your dignity and paint the white ones pink then. Even inside my chamber the palace's madness seeped in like smoke. Birthday celebrations at the Imperial Palace weren't just grand. They were wars. Nanny leaned closer. Morella wiggled the dresses at me. "Which one, Your Highness?" they asked in perfect unison, big smiles plastered on their faces. I lifted my chin regally, pretending to be very serious. I was almost 4 years old after all. I had standards. "Gold," I declared, pointing to the soft, shimmery dress. "Short, simple. I could run away easily in that one if necessary." Nanny clapped her hands, beaming. "Oh, my brilliant one, our little princess has such good taste. Just like His Majesty the Emperor." Morella wiped a fake tear from her eye. "I'm so proud. She's growing up so fast." Meanwhile, one maid in the corner accidentally knocked over a pile of tiaras and shrieked like she'd committed a mortal sin. Meanwhile, Marshmallow rolled dramatically onto his back in my lap, paws to the sky, like he had finally given up on life. I knew exactly how he felt. Then I sighed in relief. Finally. It was over. Victory tasted sweet. Like marshmallow-flavored naps. I waddled toward my bed, dragging Marshmallow with me. My plan was simple. Dive under the blankets. Disappear. Sleep until this whole birthday thing was someone else's problem. I was 2 seconds away from blissful escape when... Nanny swooped me up like a crane grabbing a helpless little fish. I dangled in the air, legs kicking. "We need to get ready, my princess," she sang cheerfully, spinning me around like I was some kind of piñata. "But I want to sleep, Nanny," I wailed, flailing harder. "I'm a growing child. I need naps to grow taller." Marshmallow, still clutched in my arms, let out a pitiful meep of agreement. We were both victims of the system. Nanny just laughed, the cruel woman. "My little princess, this is an important day. We must look our very best." "But I'm just 4. I protested, scandalized. 4-year-olds need at least 20 naps a day. "Important ladies must make sacrifices," Nanny said, nodding wisely as if she was quoting some ancient imperial law. "I'm important when I'm sleeping," I argued back stubbornly. Marilla giggled from behind a tower of dresses. "She has a point, Nanny. Don't encourage her." Nanny huffed, adjusting my wriggling body like I was a sack of rebellious potatoes. Meanwhile, Marshmallow leapt onto the bed with the grace of a tiny, furry traitor. He spun around once, plopped himself right in the middle of my bed and fell asleep instantly, like he was provoking me. Like he was saying, "Ha, look, I can have naps freely. Traitor." Then I crossed my arms and gave Nanny my best serious face. "Nanny, how about I nap first and get ready later?" Nanny raised an eyebrow. "How about no? 5 minutes?" I bargained, holding up my tiny fingers like it was a life-or-death negotiation. "Today is your important day, Your Highness," Nanny said, adjusting my dress with battlefield determination. "You must shine like a star." "But Nanny, I'm a tiny princess," I protested, "not a lantern." Marilla snorted behind a dress, trying and failing to hide her laughter. Meanwhile, Marshmallow stretched even bigger across the bed like he was saying, "Good luck, you human." And that was just the trailer of my 4th birthday, which, if possible, was even grander than my first. I could already feel the stress building, and we hadn't even started the real celebration yet. "I miss Papa now. My, looks like our princess has really grown up," Nanny said fondly as she gently combed my hair for the banquet. "Huh." I blinked up at Nanny, confused, then glanced at the mirror. Before I could even process it, Marilla, standing nearby, clutched her chest dramatically and wailed, "I can't believe today she turns 4. And soon she'll turn 24. And get married. I can't believe our little princess is growing up so fast." "What?" I whipped my head toward her, almost knocking the comb out of Nanny's hands. "Hey, I'm just 4 years old. Calm down, woman." Still, when I peered into the mirror again, I had to admit maybe they had a point. I did look a little taller. And undeniably more beautiful. Maybe this was the effect of the elf blood in me? Elves were tall, right? And pretty? Well, it's not like Papa is short either. I had to admit it proudly. I have an excellent bloodline. A perfect blend of powerful, beautiful genes. Now, it's done. Our princess is all ready for the banquet party, Nanny declared, placing a sparkling tiara gently atop my head. "Now." "Whoa." I breathed, mesmerized. "I am so beautiful." Nanny and Marilla chuckled, exchanging a look, and then Nanny leaned down to kiss my cheek. "Indeed, our princess is the most beautiful," she said warmly. I smiled, basking in the praise. And then knock, knock, knock. The door creaked open and a familiar figure appeared. Tall, imposing, wrapped in dark armor that gleamed under the chandelier light. Zaravik. He still wore his serious, "I hate fun" face, like he was always secretly judging bad soup recipes, but when he saw me, his whole demeanor softened. His lips twitched into a tiny, almost shy smile. Like even he couldn't believe how cute I looked. "Your Highness," he said, clearing his throat gruffly, "His Majesty awaits." Without a second thought, I bolted toward him. "Coming," I chirped happily. Skidding to a stop before him, I tilted my head and asked sweetly, "Ravik, how do I look?" He crouched down, kneeling on one knee, and studied me very seriously as if my outfit required a full military inspection. "You look He paused, searching for the perfect word. Very radiant today, Your Highness. I beamed so brightly I could have lit up the entire palace. I know, I said proudly. Sir Ravik coughed into his glove, probably to hide a laugh, and rose back to his full height. Come. His Majesty is waiting at the end of the hallway. I nodded importantly and grabbed the sides of my skirt like I'd been taught. One hand on each side, lift slightly, walk gracefully. No more cannonball princess behavior. Before leaving, I turned back to where Marshmallow, my beloved little kitty, was busy licking his tail. Marsher. Let's go. I called. Marshmallow lifted his head, gave me a resigned "Why must I suffer?" look and patted after me. Time to walk properly. Princess mode on. Set. As we marched down the long, glittering hallway, I couldn't help sneaking peeks at every shiny surface we passed. Tall mirrors, polished vases, and the breastplates of statues in full armor. Each reflection confirmed it. I looked magnificent. Today wasn't just any normal birthday banquet after all. Today marked an important moment for the Empire. The first time the elves would gather not as foreign dignitaries but as part of the imperial family. My family. At the very end of the crimson-draped hallway stood the person I had been waiting for. Cassius Devereux. Tonight, Papa was the picture of imperial majesty. A sleek black uniform trimmed with gold, a cloak flowing behind him like a river of midnight, and the imperial crown glinting atop his long golden hair. But when he saw me, that usual stern, battle-hardened look melted away. His crimson eyes softened instantly, warm, proud, and so very full of love. I could tell. Even from far away. I grinned so wide it nearly split my face in half. Papa Paya. I squealed. I gathered my dress and zoomed down the hallway, so much for walking gracefully, stopping right in front of him. I twirled like a little top, making my skirts flare dramatically. Papa. How do I look? I asked, puffing my chest out proudly. Papa stared. His mouth twitched. He tilted his head slightly, like he was really evaluating me with a professional inspector's eye. Like a small glittery ball, he said with a completely straight face. What? Behind me, I heard Sir Ravik and Theon, another of Papa's knights, barely containing their laughter, their shoulders shaking with the effort. I gasped in betrayal. A small glittery ball? I repeated indignantly. Papa. I grew taller. I'm elegant. I'm dazzling. You grew taller? Papa interrupted like I had just claimed I could fly. Yes. I hopped up and down like an angry rabbit, puffing up my chest. I really grew taller. He peered at me with the same serious face he used when discussing empire policies. You did grow taller, but mostly from the cheeks and sideways. I stood there, frozen like someone had smacked me with a frozen fish. You're saying I got fat? I wailed, clutching my perfectly elegant cheeks. Papa tilted his head again, looking completely honest. Haven't you realized? There was a long, horrified silence. I stared at him. He stared back. Was this really my father? Or was this an imposter wearing my father's face? Should I call the guards? Should I summon the mages? And then he chuckled softly, kneeling down to my level. His hand ruffled my carefully curled hair with absolutely no mercy, turning my elegant princess hairstyle into a bird's nest in 2 seconds flat. You really did grow taller, my darling, he said, his voice soft and warm like hot cocoa. And you look astonishingly beautiful. Then he kissed my hair. My cheeks turned bright pink. Well, I suppose. Since he praised me handsomely, I could forgive him. After all, being a daughter meant I had to be magnanimous. Sigh. It's so hard being the bigger person sometimes. Papa chuckled again and then, with a little dramatic flourish, extended his hand toward me. Now, shall we go? There are people waiting for us. I straightened my back proudly like a proper princess should and placed my hand into his. Yes, let's go, I declared. Papa smiled, gently wrapping his fingers around mine. Theon stepped forward smartly, giving a sharp glance at the guards stationed by the massive banquet doors. Announce His Majesty and Her Highness the Imperial Princess, he ordered. The guards immediately straightened their backs, clanging their spears to the ground with a loud, ceremonial thud that echoed down the grand hallway. I couldn't help but squeeze Papa's hand a little tighter. It was almost time. The banquet. The first one where Mama's people, the elves, would attend not as outsiders but as family. My family. The heavy doors groaned as they began to open, revealing a golden-lit banquet hall filled with nobles, dignitaries, and, gulped, lots and lots of staring eyes. And then as the guards' voices rang out loudly announcing our presence, Papa leaned down slightly, and in one smooth, swooping motion, picked me up effortlessly. I clutched onto his robe like a little squirrel hanging onto a tree branch. And now, from up high in Papa's arms, I could see everything. The glittering chandeliers, the endless rows of nobles, the long tables filled with golden plates and mountains of delicious food. I may have drooled a little bit. And, whoa, there were so many people here today. More than usual. Way more. And they all, as if choreographed by some invisible hand, dropped to one knee or bowed deeply at the sight of us, saying loudly and in unison, "We greet His Majesty the Emperor and the Imperial Princess of the Illyrian Empire." The booming chorus echoed through the entire hall, rattling the very spoons on the tables. As we moved gracefully down the red carpet, I noticed the different groups of people. There were humans, of course, dressed in flashy, colorful outfits, their jewels sparkling under the chandeliers. And then, the elves. They stood gathered with quiet dignity, wrapped in elegant, natural-colored garments embroidered with delicate silver and green patterns. Their long hair shimmered softly and their pointed ears peeked through proudly. Unlike the humans, their emotions weren't loud, but it was clear in the way some of them smiled or clutched their hands tightly. They were proud. Proud and a little emotional. And standing near Papa's throne, I spotted Grandpa Thalion. My face lit up instantly. Without thinking, I waved at him enthusiastically like I was greeting my best friend at a candy store. Grandpa Thalion's expression softened. He placed a hand over his heart and bowed his head slightly back at me and Papa, a graceful elven way of waving. Grandpa is always so cool. It felt natural to me waving at my grandpa, but then I noticed it. The looks. Whispers, stiffened backs, wide eyes. The humans, the nobles. They were staring. Some were blinking like fish. Some were whispering behind fans. Some even looked like their brains had just crashed. Huh. I blinked in confusion. What? Never seen a granddaughter waving at her grandpa before? Geez. What's the big deal? He's my grandpa and I'm his granddaughter, simple. I lifted my chin proudly. Well, I have to say I have a cool grandpa. But just as I was preparing to bask in my own coolness, shiver. I froze. Suddenly, a chill slithered down my spine, prickling the hairs on the back of my neck. Huh. I tightened my little fists around Papa's robe without even realizing it. Something was wrong. Something felt off. Felt like something invisible had brushed past me. Something that didn't belong in the warmth of this hall. I glanced around quickly, at the crowd, at the banquet tables, at the smiling faces. Everything looked normal. Everyone was clapping, bowing, smiling politely. But somewhere in that sea of faces, I felt it. Something dark and heavy. Watching. Waiting. Or maybe I was just imagining things. Ignoring the creepy feeling, we walked closer to the Emperor's throne, the red carpet stretching beneath our feet like a path of silk fire. Murmurs quieted. The chandeliers cast a golden glow on Papa's dark robes. And then, rise. Papa's voice rang through the grand hall like warm thunder, smooth and commanding all at once. At once, the sea of nobles obeyed. Skirts rustled, boots tapped, and heads lifted in perfect unison. It was like someone had pressed a magic button called Respect the Emperor. Papa stood at the top of the dais, cloaked in black and gold, the imperial insignia shining at his shoulder. He held me in his arms, securely, protectively, as if I were both treasure and crown. His expression remained composed, but the way his fingers rested gently at my back told me everything. But Papa is so cool, so shiny. I peeked up at him. He didn't smile. Papa rarely does. But his arm held me tightly and warmly, and his thumb gently brushed over my back. That was his secret smile. Just for me. Thank you all, he began, his voice calm, deep and rich, for gathering here to celebrate the 4th birthday of my daughter, Imperial Princess of the Illyrian Empire Lavinia Devereux. I puffed out my cheeks proudly. Papa always sounds like a storybook hero when he talks like that. A ripple of clapping followed, polite and proper, as expected from a hall full of peacocks and lace and ruffles. I beamed like the sun and gave a little princess curtsy in his arms. Today, Papa continued smoothly, we do not simply celebrate her birth but also the unity and peace that bind us together, humans, elves, and beyond. Oh. Then with a casual flick of his hand he added, this banquet also marks a new chapter, the official welcome of the Navali kingdom into our imperial family tree. Gasps. Whispers. More clapping, louder this time. Someone in the back muttered, did he say family tree? As in, our emperor acknowledges that maid as our princess mother. Shoo. Don't you dare start uttering nonsense during a child's birthday. Yes, but Navali. That frosty elf kingdom? Really? Papa ignored them all like a pro. Now, he said, lowering his voice just a little, enjoy this day of joy. With that he sat on his golden throne, tall, polished, regal. Me. Naturally, I plopped down right onto his lap like it was my personal golden cushion. Look, I know there's a tiny, sparkly throne next to his that technically belongs to me, but it's always empty. I mean, why sit alone when I can sit in lap luxury? I guess you could say Papa's lap is my permanent seat. It's warm. It's high. And I get the best view of the dessert trays from here. But just as I was getting comfy, I caught some juicy whispers floating through the crowd like perfume. Our princess really is the sun of this empire, isn't she? Sun? She's more like a whole solar flare. Did you see how she waved at the elven healer? No fear. She tamed a divine beast, for heaven's sake. At 3. And she's a quarter elf. Did you hear that? Quarter. That's why her eyes sparkle like that. A divine beast in elven blood? What's next? Is she going to sprout wings and declare herself a goddess? Honestly, I'd believe it. I blinked. Well, I was just trying to wave at Grandpa Thalion, and here they were practically planning to build me a temple. Should I correct them? No. Let them worship. Papa shifted slightly on his throne, one arm still curled protectively around me. And from my elevated lap seat I saw him. Grandpa Thalion. He stood near the front, calm, poised, every inch the dignified elven monarch. Robes perfect. Back straight. Expression neutral. But his eyes. Oh no. His eyes were screaming, let me hug her. His elegant hands twitched ever so slightly at his sides. His shoulders leaned just a little forward. Barely noticeable. But I saw it. If I blinked I might have missed it, but I knew. Grandpa Thalion was this close to ignoring centuries of decorum, bulldozing through nobility, and scooping me into his arms like I was a frosted cupcake he hadn't tasted in decades. But instead he stood straight. Graceful. Hands clasped behind his back. Like a statue carved out of elf pride, protocol, and a lifetime of self-control. Poor Grandpa. He looked like he was in physical pain. The man was suffering. Papa leaned down and murmured dryly, he's been vibrating like that since morning. I stifled a giggle. Should we let him hug me before he explodes? He'll survive, Papa replied, but I noticed the faintest twitch at the corner of his mouth, the imperial version of a dad chuckle. Then the moment arrived, the grand start of the gifting ceremony. Theon stepped forward and announced in his most booming over-the-top voice, let the offerings of goodwill and blessings commence. Step forward with your tributes to His Majesty Emperor Cassius Devereux, and Her Highness Imperial Princess Lavinia Devereux. Oh boy. Here we go. The line started forming. Nobles in glittery hats. Elves in robes that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Foreign envoys with gifts wrapped in embroidered silk and embroidered ego. But first, the inner circle. Grandpa Gregor stomped forward like thunder in velvet. His boots boomed across the marble like someone had declared war on the floor. He carried a massive chest under one arm like it weighed less than a feather. Happy birthday, Your Majesty and my princess, he bellowed. Definitely not indoor volume. Everyone flinched. I lit up. Grandpa Gregor. Papa raised a single eyebrow. You are not supposed to yell at banquets. Grandpa Gregor patted my head with a big calloused hand. It's okay, princess. We haven't seen each other in a long time. I giggled. Then he dropped the chest with a thud, popped it open with dramatic flair and sparkle explosion. Inside was a tiny sword. Glittering. Gold vines wrapped around the hilt. Red gems. My size. I blinked. Why do I always get tiny swords? For the day she learns to duel. Grandpa Gregor declared proudly. Start her early. I'm 4, I reminded him. You tamed a divine beast. I think you'll manage. Sigh. Growing up around men is mostly about strategy and weapons. Next came Grand Duke Regis. Polished, elegant, and for once, smiling warmly. Happy birthday, princess. And to you as well, your majesty, he said smoothly. He handed me a velvet box. When I opened it, I audibly gasped. Inside was a crown. Tiny. Elegant. Shaped like laurel leaves. Silver and ruby, perfectly matching my eyes. Whoa. Regis chuckled. See? I knew you'd like it. Of course. I love shiny things. He looked a little too pleased with himself. Then came Osric. He walked up looking like he'd just stepped out of a fairy tale, refined, sweet, and carrying a neatly arranged tray with 2 slim, beautifully wrapped boxes. For Her Highness, he said with a kind smile. And one for His Majesty. He handed Papa the second box and gently offered mine to me. I tore it open with the delicacy of a wild raccoon and gasped again. Inside were hand-painted storybooks. One was titled, The Brave Princess and Her Dragon Dog. I squealed. That's me, Papa, and Marsher. Papa turned the book over, curious. You painted every page yourself? Osric smiled modestly. Of course. I clutched the book to my chest like it was the crown jewel of the empire. Osric. This is the best gift ever. He puffed up proudly like a pigeon who'd just won a duel. Even Papa gave him an approving nod. Not bad. And then, he stepped forward. Grandpa Thalion. Not just my adorable hug-starved grandfather, but also the esteemed High Representative of the Navali Kingdom, Ambassador and the Healer of the Elven Council, bearer of 100 titles, and master of standing like a painting. The hall went quiet. Even the nobles with the loud fans and peacock capes hushed themselves. A whole group of tall, elegant elves followed behind him, moving like wind through silk. But honestly, I only had eyes for Grandpa. He looked calm again. Graceful. Timeless. But the second our eyes met, his eyes sparkled stars. Oh, he was suffering. But he was hanging on. Your Majesty, he said with a bow to Papa, his voice smooth like moonlight. And my beloved granddaughter, Her Highness Princess Lavinia. Happy birthday. Grandpa Thalion. I chirped. He smiled, full proud grandpa mode activated, and gestured gracefully behind him. The Navali Kingdom comes bearing gifts. And a group of elves brought forward a strange floating crystal, glowing faintly blue, in a glass case. The nobles leaned in. A few gasped. The glass opened with a click and the crystal began to hover out on its own, gently circling in the air. Sparkles of soft blue light floated around it like snowflakes. It drifted over to me and slowly settled into my hands, warm and cool at the same time. What is it? I whispered. Papa narrowed his eyes slightly. That's the heart of the first frost, Grandpa Thalion said calmly, with an infuriating amount of elven flair. A rare magical relic said to be formed from the purest snow in the Navali peaks. It grants protection, clarity of mind, and glows brighter when it senses happiness. The crystal shimmered softly in my hands, and the moment I grinned, it sparkled brighter. Whoa! I shrieked. It glows when I'm happy. That's amazing. It likes me. Papa blinked. Of course it does. You're very glowing. I squinted at it. Does it also explode if I'm angry? Grandpa Thalion coughed delicately. Ideally not, but we shall monitor that. The nobles began whispering again. Is that real elven magic? She's only 4. Who gives their granddaughter a first frost heart? Do you think it works as a nightlight? I love it, I announced, hugging the crystal carefully to my chest. And then finally, blessedly, Grandpa Thalion broke character. Just for a second. He stepped closer, bent low despite all the eyes watching, and whispered softly, Can I hug you now, or must I wait until the glitter nobles leave? I whispered back, 5 seconds. Make it count. And then, arms. I was scooped up in a graceful whirl of green robes and frosty cologne. Grandpa hugged me like he'd waited all year for this moment. My face was smushed into his soft, fancy scarf. He sighed dramatically. Ah, finally. Warmth. Behind us, Papa grumbled, That's enough. You'll smash her. Grandpa shot him a frosty glare. She is not a cupcake. But she is delicate. I giggled, half squished, half thrilled. They both glared at each other like overprotective wolves arguing about who gets to carry the pup. But honestly, I was happy. Really happy, not knowing that danger was coming. Because happiness never lasted long in stories like mine. The gifting ceremony continued. There were more sparkly boxes, more overly complicated bows, and more nobles trying to outdo each other with gifts that sparkled louder than their titles. Honestly, it was starting to blur together. And then he came. The one I hated the most. The walking wart of the empire. The human embodiment of a paper cut. Marquis Everett. Even his name made my molars ache. If this were a novel, which it was technically, then he was the one responsible for my banishment in the future. The snake in a fancy coat. The weasel with a fan collection. The reason I sometimes fantasized about launching mashed potatoes at dignitaries. I don't know why, but every time I see him, some deeply buried rage in my tiny body flares to life. My nerves go pop 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 like bubble wrap. And his eyes, like that permanently constipated glare like someone just served him soup with a fly in it. Should I just order someone to pluck out those eyes? I mean, I'm the princess. Surely there's a law about protecting royal eye contact. Anyway. He walked up, draped in a seaweed-colored robe that was trying very hard to say elegant, but mostly screamed swamp monster on a budget. His shoes were so polished I could see my annoyed little face in them. And those feathers on his shoulder, were those peacock? Pheasant? Pompous? I wasn't sure. Then he bowed stiffly. Like his spine refused to bend for commoners, and somehow I counted. I wish His Majesty the Emperor a happy birthday, and look at him. Stammering. For greeting a toddler. It was honestly kind of impressive. I watched with the deadpan stare of a judge at a talent show. He fumbled through the sentence like it had personally wronged him. Then, as if dragging the words out of a crocodile's mouth, he forced the fakest smile known to mankind and added, "And I wish the son of the Empire a happy birthday." Me. He meant me. The son of Empire? Humph. Coming from the same man who once suggested in the novel that maybe I should be sent to a quiet countryside for my nerves. I blinked slowly. Deliberately. Like a cat staring at a bug. It's deciding whether to squash or ignore it. I gave him nothing. No nod. No smile. Not even a fake royal thank you with teeth gritted behind politeness. I simply turned my head and stared at the nearest vase like it was the most fascinating artifact in the empire. There was a brief silence. A very awkward one. Because he, Marquis Everett, walking ego in feathers, was waiting. Waiting for me to say thank you. And not just him. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. A few nobles glanced at each other. Even the air felt like it was holding its breath, like, is the princess snubbing him? In public? On her birthday? Yes, Geraldine. She is. Then came the voice I'd been anticipating. Lavinia, you should. Papa's voice. Soft, patient emperor mode. He was about to tell me to say thank you. You know, to be diplomatic, or gracious, or some other virtue. I had zero interest in performing for that man. So before he could finish, I tilted my head dramatically and gasped with all the sparkle of a girl who just saw a unicorn. Oh wow. I said, eyes wide. I want those chocolate lava cakes, Papa. They're behind the buffet table. Glorious. Gooey. Steamy chocolate dreams stacked in towers of sugar and happiness. My saviors. Papa blinked, paused for half a second, and then looked to Thean with a nod. Get them for her. Thean vanished like a man on a quest from the gods. And Everett? Oh, Everett. Did you see that? Hey, you pompous potato with a monocle addiction. Did you see how not even the Emperor is going to force me to thank you? This is my empire, you bastard. Sit down and eat a shoe. I didn't say it out loud. Of course not. I just gave Everett the faintest glance. A look so brief, so cutting it might as well have been a dagger wrapped in a cupcake. He flinched. I turned back to the vase. Still so beautiful. So vase-why. Truly the MVP of this party. Victory had never tasted so sweet. And soon it would taste like molten chocolate. Marquis Everett, may his socks always be slightly damp, gave a stiff bow and finally walked away. But not before I felt it. That glare. Like two angry cucumbers dipped in vinegar, his eyes burned into the back of my royal head. An ominous glare. How dare this 4-year-old defy my diplomatic existence kind of glare. What, you bitter baguette? Think your hatred burns brighter than mine? I read the novel. I know what you did. I hate you more than you hate spinach in your teeth. So go glare at a wall and trip on your way out. Now then, back to the real matter at hand. Chocolate. Lava. My eyes sparkled like treasure-hunting pirates spotting gold. One bite, and the world became a soft, squishy dreamland of gooey warmth and sugar-induced serenity. That's how the day was going. And then, disaster. My head started to droop. I was losing the battle. The chocolate was winning. Curse you, decadent sweetness. My eyelids grew heavier than Papa's tax ledgers. I leaned forward. Thud. Straight into Papa's chest. Papa held and hugged me tighter. His arms were warm. Looks like our little princess is sleepy, said Theon with a grin. Papa nodded like a wise emperor in deep thought. Call Narina. Not long after, Nanny Narina arrived with Morella skipping beside her like a backup dancer in a royal musical. Take her to her chamber, Papa said softly, brushing my bangs aside and pressing a kiss to my forehead. I'll be back soon. I gave him the smallest, most royal nod my sleepiness could manage. He glanced at Ravik. Stay with her until I arrive. Ravik gave the knightly nod of honor. Nanny lifted me up and cradled me as we started walking down the hallway. I lazily raised one hand and waved at Grandpa Thalion. Good night, I mumbled sleepily. I knew he would have followed me if he could, but poor Grandpa. He was stuck in the middle of noble chatter. My head rested against Nanny's shoulder, eyes fluttering. I was about to drift off completely when, boom. My eyes snapped open like toast in a war zone. Gasp. I gasped. Loudly. For drama. Nanny clutched me tighter. Morella jumped like a frightened bunny. What? What was that? I was wondering the same thing. Ravik immediately stepped forward, hand on the hilt of his sword. His voice was low and sharp. Stay here. Don't move. I'll check it out. Nanny gave a short nod, her eyes already scanning every shadow. The moment Ravik disappeared down the corridor, Morella squeaked, then wrapped her arms around both me and Nanny like we were her last hope. Princess, don't worry, she stammered, her voice 2 pitches higher than usual. Everything is fine. Super fine. Like birthday cake and butterflies fine. Sure. Says the girl, shaking so hard I thought she might vibrate through the marble floor. Nanny held me closer, her voice soft but steady. One hand stroked my back. The other pulled a dagger from beneath her skirt with the casual ease of someone who's used it before. She knew something was very, very wrong. And just like that, my sleepiness, gone, vanished, running for the hills. And then, flash, a spray of red painted the far wall. A man's body collapsed just feet from us, eyes wide, throat slashed open. Ravik stood over him, sword gleaming red and deadly. Morella screamed. Assassins, she shrieked. Protect the princess. It's an assassination attack. The sound of more footsteps echoed, rushed, heavy, too many. Ravik's eyes snapped to Nanny and Morella. Inform His Majesty. We are under attack. Now. Run. Morella's face paled like whipped cream left out in the sun. But she nodded, eyes wide with panic, and bolted down the hall in a blur of ruffles and fear. I clung to Nanny's dress, heart pounding like a war drum. My small fingers gripped her tightly and I could feel her pulse racing too. We were far. Too far from the banquet hall. Ravik turned toward us, eyes sharp and dark like storm clouds. There are more incoming, he warned, voice low and grim. Stay behind me. Then he moved again. Like a shadow made of steel and fury. Another scream. Another body hit the floor. My breath caught. My tiny hands clutched tighter. This was no joke. This wasn't a dramatic dream or childish fright. This was real. Someone was trying to kill me. Ravik's sword dripped crimson as he turned to Nanny, voice sharp but calm. Find a safe place. Hide. I'll deal with the rest. Nanny didn't hesitate. She tightened her grip on me, nodded once, and ran. She didn't look back, she didn't flinch, she just ran. Her boots pounded against the stone floors as the echo of steel and screaming faded behind us. Corridor after corridor, hallway after hallway. We turned, we twisted, we sprinted through the palace like shadows being chased by something darker. And then, a door. Wooden, plain, tucked away in a quiet bend of the corridor. Nanny threw it open, stepped inside and gently shut it behind us. Darkness swallowed us whole. Her breath was ragged as she crouched low, still holding me. I could feel her chest rising and falling like a panicked drum. "Nanny," I whispered, voice small. She looked at me and forced a smile. Soft, calm, the kind only a nanny could give even when the world outside was crumbling. "It's okay, princess," she said gently, brushing hair from my face. "Nothing will happen. I won't let anything happen to you." I nodded. Because I believed her. Of course I did. Papa was my sword, Nanny was my shield. I tried to look around. The room was dark. Probably a storage room. The walls were cold stone, and the only light came from a sliver under the door. It was quiet. Too quiet. I was just about to bury my face into her shoulder when... drip. Warm. Wet. On my hand. I blinked. Looked down, red. Blood. I looked up. Nanny. Blood was trickling from her head. Behind her, a figure in black. A man, tall, cloaked, silent as a shadow. His hand was over Nanny's mouth. I hadn't heard a thing. How? Nanny's eyes fluttered and then... thud. She collapsed, my breath froze in my throat, and before I could scream, his hand covered my mouth. "Got her," he said in a low voice. "We have the princess, let's move." The door creaked open behind him. Another figure waited in the shadows. And just like that, the darkness swallowed me whole. My face was pressed against something rough and scratchy, like old leather. My tiny arms flailed, but the man carrying me only tightened his grip. "Stop squirming, you little rat," he growled, his breath hot and sour near my ear. I couldn't scream. My mouth was covered by something. A rough hand, maybe? It smelled like blood and ash. My eyes burned. They were running. "Run faster. You bastard. We can't fail," one of them growled. Boots slammed against the marble floor. I could feel every jolt and shift as the man carrying me dashed down hallway after hallway, twisting and turning through corridors I felt like I didn't recognize. "This way," one of them barked. "The east wing passage leads straight to the garden wall." "The patrol's tighter near the wall, you idiot," another snapped back. "We'll be surrounded if we go there. Then we hold them off. The brat's the only leverage we've got." My heart thundered so hard it hurt. I wanted to scream. I wanted Papa. The palace that once felt like a dream had become a nightmare. Everything blurred. Lamps flickered past. Drapes flew in their wake. Paintings dissolved into smudges of gold and oil. Didn't think the emperor's dog would react that fast. Who tipped him off? Forget that. Just move. After living a quiet, peaceful life in this palace, how could I forget? I am the only daughter of a tyrant emperor. His weakness. A threat. The one thing in this empire they all want to test. I was lucky the last time, when assassins came for me in the nursery. Papa saved me. But that doesn't mean I'm invincible. Just because I didn't die then, doesn't mean I can't now. For 4 years, I lived the life I once begged for in my previous life as Reina Suzuki. Father who loved me. A palace where I belonged. People who smiled when they saw me. If I die now, Papa will lose his mind. He'll become the monster everyone thinks he already is. He'll destroy everything. Nanny will fall into another pit of despair. Morella, Theon, Ravik. They'll cry. No one will be left to tease Osric. Marcia will be left masterless. And Grandpa Gregor and my elf grandpa, they will be heartbroken. No, I can't die like this. That's the exit. Run fast, one of them hissed. I clenched my tiny teeth. I couldn't wait for someone to save me. I have to protect myself. So bite. Arg. The man cried out, yanking his hand away. That little rat bit my finger. His grip loosened and I didn't think. I jumped. Hit the ground. Pulled. My knees scraped. My palms burned and yet I ran. Ugh, she got away. Hey, she's getting away. Just catch her. I ran. Kept running. I shouldn't have left Ravik's or Papa's side. If they were here they'd kill these men in one blow. She's just a kid, she can't go far, one of them shouted behind me. Don't look back, Lavi. Run. Run. I can feel their hands reaching for me again. I'm not strong yet. This is unfair, completely unfair. Then, suddenly I felt a hand reaching for my shoulder. No. No, I can't be caught. Someone save me. And then, aff. A cry of pain. A small knife whizzed past me, hitting the hand that was about to grab me. Blood splattered. Huh. I turned just in time to hear. Lavi. Huh. There, at the end of the hallway stood Osric. His eyes were blazing. His small fists clenched. He was only 11, but the fury radiating off him felt like fire. Lavi, come here. Fast. I didn't know if Osric could save me. Maybe we'd both end up in danger. Maybe this was foolish. But I didn't care. Because right now, right this second, he was my safe place. And I ran to him. My legs were trembling, scraped, and bleeding from when I fell earlier, but I didn't stop. I threw myself into his arms, and the moment our hands met, he grabbed mine tightly, like he would never let go. We have to move, he said, his voice low and steady, almost too steady for a boy his age. They're right behind you. I nodded. There was no time to be a scared little princess. No time to cry. We had to survive until someone found us. So we ran. Bolted down the marble corridors, the sound of our footsteps ringing like drums of war behind us. Shouts echoed down the halls. Footsteps thundered, growing louder. Osric, I panted, lungs burning. Do you even know where we're going? He didn't look back. Yes. Really? Not exactly. Just trust me, Lavi. I'll get us out. Trust him? I already did. We burst through a side door into the open gardens, the cold night air slapping my face like a wake-up call. Moonlight spilled over the hedges and statues, making every shadow feel like a lurking monster. There. Osric yanked me toward a thick bush near the stone wall. We dove behind it, crouching low. Leaves clawed at my skin. I barely noticed. Let's stay here, he whispered, his breath heaving. Just until someone finds us. I nodded, gripping his hand tighter. The information must have reached Papa by now. He must know. He has to be searching for me. So until then, we just had to wait. And then, I heard them. The assassins. Getting closer. Their voices were sharp, harsh, and cruel. She bit me, that little brat. She was with someone. Another kid. Find them. We should have just killed her when we had the chance. Shut up. She's worth more alive. Search every corner. I curled into myself, heart racing so violently I thought it might rip through my chest. I clutched Osric's hand like it was the last thing tethering me to life. He turned to me then, not like a frightened boy but like a knight. I won't let them touch you again, he whispered. I swear it. On my name. On my blood. Tears burned behind my eyes. I wanted to believe him. I did. But we were just two children. Hiding in the dark. Hoping the world wouldn't see us. Please, Papa. Please find us. And then. Found you, you little brats. A shadow tore through the bush, leaves scattering as a man lunged toward us with a wicked grin. His dagger gleamed under the moonlight. Osric stood up and threw his arms in front of me. Don't touch her. The assassin scoffed. What are you gonna do, kid? Cry on me. He reached for us. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. My eyes widened with shock. And then a flash of silver answered. Huh. The man froze. His eyes widened. He choked. A sickening sound like wet cloth tearing. Blood burst from his mouth as he dropped to his knees. Behind him, silent as a specter, stood Ravik. His sword was buried deep in the assassin's back, blood dripping along the cold, glinting steel. You picked the wrong person to hunt, Ravik said, voice flat, lethal. The man collapsed, twitching once before going still. Ravik stepped over the corpse, eyes sharp and assessing. Then he looked at me and then knelt right in front of me. He bowed his head. Forgive me, princess. I was late. Ravik. My voice cracked. I stumbled forward and threw my arms around him. Shoo, he murmured, gently steadying me with one hand. You're safe now, my princess. I've got you. He looked past me toward Osric and gave a single nod of respect. Can I trust you to keep protecting her for a bit longer, young master? Osric stood straighter, face fierce. I won't let anything happen to her. Ravik gave him a small smile. Good. Then, please, close your eyes. He turned his gaze back toward the garden path. This won't take long. I nodded, trembling, and stood beside Osric, holding his hand again. Together we closed our eyes. And then all I could hear was, clang. A scream tore through the night. Ag. Ugh. A sickening splash followed. Wet. Final. Chev mercy. We were just ordered to. But Ravik didn't let them finish. Spurt. Jeech. I squeezed Osric's hand harder. He didn't flinch. He stood tall like a soldier. Then silence. Only the sound of wind brushing through the garden hedges. Only the soft drip, drip, of something hitting the stone. It's done, my princess. Ravik's voice was calm, steady, just as always. I opened my eyes slowly, and saw him. Ravik the Black Knight standing there like a ghost born of war. His cloak was soaked. Blood painted his arms, splattered across his chest and face. Blood dripped from the edge of his sword, pooling at his boots. He looked like a nightmare. I knew he was dangerous like Papa. I'd always known. But I had never seen him like this before. Yet, I didn't flinch. I didn't step back. Because to me, even drenched in blood, even with death clinging to him like a second skin, he looked like salvation. Ravik draped his bloody jacket over my shoulders before scooping me into his arms. I trembled, partly from the cold, partly from the fear that still hadn't left my bones. I had never run like that before. Never to save myself. Never while someone chased me with the intent to make me disappear. And Osric. He had followed us, concerned. It's all right. You're safe, my princess, Ravik murmured again and again, like a lullaby meant to calm a crying child. But I wasn't calm. And I wasn't sure I ever would be again. My birthday dress clung to me, soaked not in my own blood, but theirs. The assassins. The ones who tried to take me. By the time we crossed into the main palace, the air was thick with urgency. Footsteps echoed across marble, too many to count. The princess has returned. Inform His Majesty, someone shouted. Morella came barreling toward me, eyes wide and glistening with tears. Princess. Thank the stars you're safe. Oh heavens, we thought you had actually been kidnapped, princess. I flinched at her voice. It rang through the halls like a trumpet, sharp and unmissable. But even as her words reached me, I couldn't help scanning the crowd behind her. Where was Nanny? She wasn't with the others. My fingers tightened around Ravik's robe, knuckles white. Right. I remembered now, she was struck. On the head. While protecting me. A lump formed in my throat. Please. Let her be all right. Around me chaos reigned. Guards yelling orders. Blood trailing behind us. Panic buzzing through the halls like hornets. And then. His Majesty has arrived. I whipped my head toward the stairs, my heart leaping. He descended like a storm-given flesh, each step echoing power, every inch of him drenched in blood. Not his, I hoped. Perhaps the assassins who tried to take me. Behind him, Grandfather Gregor and Grand Duke Regis followed, their expressions hard as chiseled stone. Papa's gaze swept the hall, sharp and burning, and then it found me. His gaze was terrifying. It wasn't the anger. It was the rage. The kind that could even kill gods. But it didn't matter. Because it was him. Papa. I cried, squirming from Ravik's arms and running toward him. He knelt silent. His blood-covered hands reached for my face. Gently, like I would break. Lavinia. He whispered. Then he pulled me into his chest, wrapping his arms around me tightly. And for a moment, I was safe. Really safe. But just as quickly he flinched. And then he pushed me away. Wah. I stumbled, a sharp twist of confusion and pain tightening in my chest. Did Papa just push me? Why would he do that? Does he not see I need him now more than ever? Take the princess to her chamber, he said, his voice cold, steely, like a blade sliding back into its sheath as he turned his back on me. And just like that, my heart shattered. How could he do that? I had almost died today. His only daughter, almost gone. And the one place I thought I'd find comfort, the one person I believed would never turn away from me, just did. My lips trembled. My chest ached like it was caving in. I didn't even realize I was crying until the tears slipped silently down my cheeks. Itchy. Wah. I broke down right there in the middle of the palace hallway, small, shaking and utterly heartbroken. Papa flinched. He turned, eyes darting toward me. The cold mask he wore cracked just slightly, but enough. I saw it. I saw the war behind his eyes. He wanted to come to me. To hold me. But something held him back. Morella panicked, her voice cracking. Princess, please, you're safe now. Don't cry. But I couldn't stop. I couldn't. I wanted him. I wanted my papa, my family, my everything. And he had turned away from me when I needed him the most. Then Grandpa Gregor stepped beside him. His voice was low but sharp like a blade. Seriously, after everything she needs her father. How can you turn away from her now? Papa froze. He looked at me then down at his hands. Bloody. Shaking. I'm drenched in blood, he whispered almost to himself. Don't you know? Grandfather said gently. Your daughter doesn't mind that. Papa went silent. I sobbed again, hiccuping, Papa. And that was it. He moved. One step. Then another. And then in a heartbeat I was in his arms again. He scooped me up and held me so tightly it almost hurt, but I never wanted him to let go. There. It's over now, my child. You're safe, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion, each word trembling like it might break. Hick. I hiccuped, clutching his blood-soaked tunic with my tiny fingers. I buried my face in the crook of his neck, the scent of blood and ash clinging to him. But I didn't care. He was here. I had him back. And that was all I needed. Before I could fully embrace my darling Papa's warmth, a sudden thunder of footsteps echoed from above. My precious child. Heads turned. Gasps followed. Down the grand staircase came Grandpa Thalion, robes billowing like sails in a storm, silver hair gleaming beneath the chandelier light, eyes wild with panic. Behind him trailed what looked like half the elven delegation, equally wide-eyed and flustered, weapons drawn, bows, blades, and even a floating orb of light that someone definitely wasn't cleared to bring into the palace. Move, get out of the way. Grandpa barked, elegant and wrathful, like an elven hurricane with a soft spot for pink bows and glitter. Where is my granddaughter? My precious, only granddaughter. Then his eyes landed on me. For a second, everyone thought he would calm down. He didn't. Instead, he bolted down the last 3 steps like a meteor and launched himself toward me. My darling sun blossom, he gasped, hands trembling as he clutched mine. Did you get hurt? Tell Grandpa where it hurts. I shall personally hex the bones of anyone who laid a finger on you. I sniffled, hiccuped, blinked once, then twice, and with the most solemn pout I could muster, I lifted my frock just a little, revealing the horror beneath. Look, Grandpa, I said gravely, pointing to my scraped knee. I'm bleeding. A beat of silence. The sweet stars above. Grandpa shrieked. Her knee, look at her precious knee. I could feel the air shift. A dark aura, thick and icy, began to evaporate from Papa like he'd turned into a wrathful spirit ready to burn the world. Grandpa held my tiny hands with fierce tenderness. Don't worry, my child, he declared with absolute confidence. Grandpa will heal you instantly. And just like that, the healer of the Elven Kingdom, the greatest master of ancient healing arts, knelt before me as if I were the most precious treasure in the world and began to chant softly. A gentle green light swirled around my knees, warm and soothing, like a soft breeze on a spring morning. It tickled as it wrapped around the scrapes, washing away the sting, the ache, even the blood itself. Shoo, there you go, my brave flower, Grandpa whispered, his voice as soft as moonlight. The glow pulsed one last time before fading completely. Gone just like that. No pain, no scar, not even a memory left behind. I blinked. Then I wiggled my legs experimentally. No pain. No cut. No trace of disaster. I stared in awe. The pain really was gone. Whoa. It's so cool, Grandpa, I breathed, staring at my perfectly healed knees. But then I turned my gaze, eyes landing on a certain someone who stood nearby. His clothes dirted, cheeks scraped, and a determined look still lingering on his small face. Grandpa. I tugged on his sleeve and pointed. Please heal Osric too. He's injured too. Grandpa blinked. Osric? Before he could ask more, Sir Ravik stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Our little lord has protected our princess bravely, Your Majesty. Papa's crimson gaze turned sharply toward Osric. I felt the weight of his eyes shift to me. I gave a firm little nod. Across the room, Grandpa Gregor beamed with pride, his chest puffed out like a peacock. Grand Duke Regis's usual coolness broke for a second as a proud smile curled on his lips. With a hum of approval, Grandpa Thalion gave a graceful nod and knelt before Osric, his fingers glowing with soft magic once more. Osric flinched slightly at first but stood tall as the green light swirled around him. Within seconds, the scratches on his cheeks and arms vanished like they'd never been there. Done, Grandpa said kindly, rising to his feet. Then Grand Duke Regis walked over to Osric and gently patted his head. "Good job, my son." His voice was deep and steady. "Remember, you have to protect our princess like this always." Osric nodded, eyes wide and proud, his cheeks turning the faintest shade of pink. And just like that, in a swirl of magic, chaos and tears, my disastrous birthday finally came to an end. I was safe. Osric was brave. Grandpa had saved the day. Papa was still brooding but slightly less terrifying. Me? I decided birthdays were exhausting. Maybe next year we could just eat cake and nap instead. Lavinia's POV. The palace was still in chaos. I could hear it. The thunder of boots against marble, the clash of steel voices barking orders into the storm of fear. Panic moved through the halls like wildfire. But none of it mattered. Not when Ravik opened the door to my chamber and when I saw her. "Nanny." My voice cracked. My legs barely held me, but they didn't care. They moved before I could think. Faster, faster. Until I crashed into her skirts, clutching the familiar fabric like a lifeline. Nanny turned the moment she saw me. Her face crumpled. Part shock, part overwhelming relief. And then she was on her knees, arms wrapping around me like the walls of the world had finally returned. "Oh, my little princess," she whispered, voice thick with tears. "By the heavens, thank the stars you're safe, my precious girl." She held me so tightly like she will lose me again. Like if she loosened her grip, I'd disappear into the chaos outside. The sounds of the palace, the storm of soldiers and panic, faded behind the chamber doors. Here there was only Nanny and me. Only warmth. Only home. I buried my face into her cloak, breathing in that scent. Herbs and rosewater, the smell of comfort, the smell of safe. If I stayed like this, maybe time would stop. Maybe the nightmare wouldn't be real anymore. But when I finally pulled back to look at her, I saw it. Her temple where she was hit before had no wound. Maybe Grandpa Thalion healed her too. But still, my fingers, trembling, reached up to touch it as I recalled her wounds from earlier. But Nanny, she smiled gently, pressing her hand over mine. "Lord Thaon healed me, princess," she said softly. "It's nothing now. Everything is fine, my princess." I nodded, but something inside cracked again. I lunged back into her arms, clinging even tighter. "Ich, Nanny." I was so scared. I choked it out. My words drowned in quiet sobs. It was dark. And that man grabbed me. And I thought I lost you. She rocked me gently the way she used to when I had nightmares. "My sweet princess," she murmured. "It's over. You're safe. No one will ever take you from me again." I remembered clearly how she held on to me even as that man hit her. How she wrapped her body around mine like a shield, even when he tried to rip me away. She never let go. Even when it hurt. Even when it meant risking her life. That's what a mother does, isn't it? Sylvain may have brought me into this world, but it was Nanny Narina who raised me. Nanny Narina, who stayed up through my fevers, who sang to me when I couldn't sleep, who whispered stories in the dark and held me through every storm. She's not just my nanny. She's my real mother. I melted into her embrace and she hugged me more tightly, calming me down. Emperor Cassius's POV. Did she sleep? My voice was low, almost a whisper, but it sliced through the heavy quiet of the room. Narina, seated beside the bed, looked up from where she had just finished tucking Lavinia in. Her hand lingered over the child's chest as if still guarding her with every breath. "Yes, Your Majesty," she said softly. "She's asleep." I stepped closer, the weight of blood still clinging to my boots, the scent of smoke and steel trailing behind me like a shadow. My soldiers had just finished dragging the last of the corpses out of the eastern wing. I could still hear the screams of cries in my ears, not from the intruders but from my daughter. My little girl. I stood over her bed, looking down at her face, flushed from crying, tear tracks dried on her cheeks. She looked so small. Too small to carry the weight of my enemy's hatred. "She's seen too much today," Narina said quietly. "No child should have to." I clenched my jaw, my hands curling into fists at my sides. I had crushed rebellions, raised cities and silenced traitors. But none of it prepared me for the sound of her scream echoing through the palace halls. For a moment I had tasted something worse than death. I looked at Narina. "Thank you," I said, my voice rougher than I intended. "For not letting her go. Even when they hurt you." She smiled, though she was in danger. "You shouldn't thank me, my lord. I only followed instinct." She is my heart as well. I said nothing. Just nodded. Stay with her tonight, I commanded. I have work to do. Things to clean up. Yes, Your Majesty, she said with a bow. I leaned down and pressed my lips to Lavinia's forehead. She didn't stir, but her little fingers shifted in her sleep, reaching out. As if she knew I was there. As if she knew I had come for her. My chest twisted painfully. I turned and left the chamber, closing the doors behind me with slow, silent care. The hallway was quieter than the rest of the palace, muffled from the chaos outside. My footsteps echoed off the marble floors as I walked, my thoughts churning. I remembered Marshmallow, hissing, pawing, growling, his fur bristling as if he sensed something before it even began. What's wrong with him? I had asked Theon, watching the creature dart between my legs. Perhaps he was upset about being left behind, Your Majesty, Theon had said, trying to scoop him up. Maybe he wanted to stay with the princess. Theon nodded, lifting the still hissing animal, and then, Your Majesty, the princess has been attacked. Morella's scream shattered the air as she burst through the banquet hall doors, her face pale, her voice trembling. A gasp filled the hall. What? Attack? The princess was attacked? What did you just say? Theon barked, already moving. But I was no longer listening. I ran. I didn't think, didn't breathe. My instincts overtook me. The moment her name and the word attack were spoken in the same breath, the world collapsed into noise. My vision blurred. My heart pounded like war drums. My daughter, Lavinia, she's in danger? No. How could this happen again? I had tripled the guards after the last incident. I had vetted every servant, every knight, every shadow that crossed her path. I had watched the world bleed to make her safe. And still they had reached her. They still dared. I stormed through the palace like a beast unchained, my vision red, my breath ragged with fury. If even a single hair on her head has been harmed, I will raze this empire to the ground. I will drown it in blood if I have to. I tore through the gilded corridors, ignoring the horrified stares of servants and soldiers alike. The pristine marble floor was stained with chaos, overturned vases, blood splatters, and torn tapestries. And then, steel clashed ahead. Screams. A body slammed against the wall, crumpling like paper. I turned the corner and saw Ravik. His blade dripped red as he cut down a masked assassin with brutal precision. Another came from behind him, but I moved faster. My sword found flesh, slicing through bone like butter. Your Majesty. Ravik gasped, briefly stunned. You shouldn't be here. Where is she? I snarled, grabbing him by the collar. Where is my daughter? She. Ravik caught his breath. Nanny Narina took her and ran. She's protecting the princess. Narina. I know. She would die before letting anyone touch Lavinia. But even she's only human. She's not enough. She can't face them alone, I growled, pushing him back. Go. Find them. Protect my daughter. Yes, my lord. Fast. Ravik gave a sharp nod and vanished into the shadows, his footsteps echoing like thunder. Meanwhile, another assassin lunged from the side, screaming in some foreign tongue, blade drawn for my throat. I didn't hesitate. Steel met flesh. Blood sprayed on the wall. I moved like death itself, cutting down every wretched soul who dared to stain these halls with their presence. The floor was slick beneath my boots, but I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. She was here. She walked these halls. What if she cried here? What if she bled here? How dare this bastards touch my daughter? The scent of blood burned my nose, but beneath it, faint, delicate, I smelled lavender. Her scent. Lavinia. My little girl. My daughter. And I wasn't there when she needed me. I gritted my teeth as I tore my blade from the last assassin's corpse, my chest heaving, my hands slick with blood. I will kill everyone. Every single person who dared to touch her. I carved my way through the chaos like a madman, blade singing death with every swing. Screams echoed, metal clashed, but I heard none of it. I saw only red. The blood of those who dared touch what was mine. I didn't even realize I was soaked in it until... Your Majesty. Theon's voice tore through the haze. The princess, she's safe. She's here. My heart stopped. My sword slipped from my fingers. My legs moved before my mind could catch up. And then I saw her. Lavinia. Tiny. Alive. Reaching for me. Papa. Her voice cracked something in me. I dropped to my knees and caught her in my arms. I held her so tight like she might disappear if I let go. She was warm. Breathing. Ew. Thank the gods. But then, I looked down. My hands were soaked. My uniform stained with blood. It wasn't mine, but it didn't matter. I looked like a monster. I pulled back quickly, trying to hide it from her. Take the princess back to her chamber, I said, my voice rough with shame. She shouldn't see me like this. Not like this. But then, H.E.W. Wah. Her sobs shattered me. Why is she crying? Is she hurt? Did one of those bastards hurt her? I clenched my jaw, rage surging again. Seriously, Lord Gregor muttered beside me, stepping forward. After everything, the one thing she needs is her father. And you're turning away from her? I blinked. I looked at her again. Tears streaming down her flushed cheeks, her arms still reaching for me. But I'm covered in blood. Did you forget? Lord Gregor said softly. Your daughter doesn't mind that. That's right, how could I forget that? My daughter, she never feared blood unless it was someone close to her. I am such a fool. Without another word, I turned back to her. She reached for me again, sobbing, her face blotchy and red. I wrapped her in my arms once more. And the moment I did, she stopped crying. She is the only warmth I have in this cold, brutal life, and I swear, on crown, empire, and blood, she will never face this kind of fear again. Never. Ever. Emperor Cassius's POV. As I stepped into the War Council hall, the stench of blood still clung to my skin. The taste of it hadn't left my tongue since I tore through those pathetic worms who dared lay a finger on my child. Ravik was already kneeling at the center of the chamber. His armor was battered, his face was stained red, and his hands were still shaking. Your Majesty, he said, voice low, I failed to protect the princess. I offer no excuse. My brow twitched. Annoyance flickered. Ravik didn't stop. As captain of the Black Knights, I failed in my duty. I am prepared to accept punishment, whatever you see fit. The audacity. I was already seething, and yet his words, spoken with so much hollow honor, only poured oil onto fire. I grabbed him by the collar, yanking him up so we were face to face. If that's what you want, I hissed through clenched teeth, then so be it. My gaze flicked toward Theon. Theon, prepare for Captain Ravik's execution now. But before Theon could even move, Grand Duke Regis stepped between us, his hand firm on my arm as he gently pushed Ravik back. Your Majesty, Ravik, calm yourselves. Let's not lose ourselves. The princess is safe now. Safe? The word felt like a mockery. Safe? After what I saw. After seeing her cry, trembling in my arms, blood staining her tiny hands? I looked past Regis and glared down at Ravik. Do you truly think offering your head will calm my fury? I growled. If you want to run away from your responsibility, then resign. Don't stand there babbling about death like a coward. It's pathetic. Ravik flinched, the words cutting deeper than any sword. I am sorry, Your Majesty, he whispered, but I still cannot forgive myself. Then don't, I snapped. Find those bastards. Kill them. Burn your guilt into purpose. I want to know who dared to touch my daughter. I want names. I want their heads. Yes, Your Majesty. I swear it. He stepped back. But my rage didn't settle. Then Lord Gregor sighed and stepped forward. We've begun investigating, Your Majesty. From what we've uncovered so far, the plan was executed by two groups. One was positioned inside the palace to initiate the kidnapping. The other was waiting outside, to either take the princess far away or, he hesitated, to kill her if things went wrong. My fists clenched. To kill her. I echoed, my voice hollow with disbelief. But how did they even get in? Thalion, the elf healer, stepped forward, his voice sharp. Isn't the palace supposed to be the safest place in the Empire for her? Theon's voice was cold and measured. It's clear, Your Majesty. There's a spy. Someone inside the palace, or within our empire, helped them. Without insider access, this operation would have been impossible. Everyone nodded. And I felt a chill slither down my spine, immediately replaced by the fire of fury. Have we learned anything more? I asked. We couldn't. Regis sighed, rubbing his temples. You and Ravik slaughtered most of them. Like mad dogs. There were not even a single one of them left alive to question. Silence fell. What happened was what happened, Your Majesty. Lord Gregor stepped in again. Now we must uncover every thread of this scheme. Because if we don't, next time they'll come back stronger. More organized. And our princess, she might not be so lucky. Next time? I gritted my teeth so hard I tasted blood. Then I'll burn down every noble house until the traitor is found. I snarled, voice booming. I'll burn their families, their estates, their legacy. I'll raise their titles, salt their names from history. I will show them what it means to defy the imperial bloodline. I will make them beg for death. No one dared speak. No one breathed. Then Thalion stepped forward. His calm, ancient aura now blazed with fury. And I will help you, Your Majesty, he vowed, his voice cold and vengeful. Whoever dared to lay a hand on my precious granddaughter will suffer. Their death will be neither swift nor merciful. I will see to that personally. Yes. Let the heavens burn and the empire tremble if it must. I will shake this entire realm to its foundation if that's what it takes to keep Lavinia safe. Then Grand Duke Regis let out another heavy sigh and muttered, Men, control your rage for now. Focus on what matters, on keeping your daughter safe. That's the priority. I didn't answer right away. He was right. Rage alone wouldn't protect her. But it would fuel me until the last of those traitors was dead. Theon stepped forward, his expression composed but his tone firm. I agree with the Grand Duke, Your Majesty. The investigation will continue, but we must tighten the palace's security immediately. The enemy exploited our weaknesses, and we cannot let that happen again. He paused, then added, I recommend appointing a personal royal knight to guard the princess. Someone skilled, loyal beyond question, and completely devoted to her safety. A royal knight? I murmured under my breath. Then Lord Gregor stepped forward, nodding. I agree. The princess is 4 now. It's time she had a personal knight. One who answers to her and her alone. They were right. Completely right. We needed a shadow bound to her life. Someone who would walk behind her through fire and death. Someone who would throw themselves into hell without hesitation the moment her safety wavered. And there was only one man in this entire empire I trusted enough for that role. Ravik, I said, my voice echoing like steel across the chamber. I entrust my daughter's safety to you. He stiffened, visibly flinching as though struck. Your Majesty, no. I failed today. I don't deserve. I silenced him with a step forward, my shadow swallowing his. I stood in front of him, eyes narrowed, jaw tight, and said with quiet ferocity, then earn it back. He looked up, stunned. Sacrifice your pride. Your hesitation. Your very soul, I said, each word like thunder. Give everything you are to my daughter. You don't get to die to atone, Ravik. That would be easy. I want you to live, and dedicate every breath from this day forward to her safety. He dropped to his knees again, trembling now, not in fear but in overwhelming devotion. I will, he said, his voice hoarse. I swear on my sword, my name, and the blood that runs through me. I will protect Her Highness with my life. No harm will touch her again, not while I still stand. Good, I said, my voice cold but final. Because if you fail me again there will be no second chance. He bowed deeply. Yes, Your Majesty. Lavinia's POV. I slept like a pig yesterday. No, seriously. Out cold. Dead to the world. A rock could have rolled over me and I wouldn't have flinched. Most normal kids, after almost being kidnapped by shady, robed weirdos with child-snatching energy, would be crying, screaming, or curled in a fetal position, needing therapy, hugs, and a dozen security charms. But not me. Because I'm not normal. I'm Lavinia Devereux. Reincarnated office worker. Villainous to be. Anyway, that's not why I slept like a log. It's because my nanny was beside me all night, humming lullabies and patting my back like she was soothing a fussy cat. And I think Papa came too. I was half asleep, but I swear I felt that familiar warm aura and scent of blood. Everything would have been perfect except for one very fluffy problem. Why the heck is this divine marshmallow glued to me? I was practically buried under his fuzzy little body, which for the record might have looked small compared to a grown adult. But to me, I was one bad roll away from being smothered by holiness. Nanny told me last night that Marcia had been hissing and biting people like a rabid furball just before Morella told Papa I was in danger. Apparently, divine beings can sense their humans' distress. That's cute and all. But what part of divine intuition made him think it was okay to cocoon me like a clingy burrito? Marcia, I get it you like me, but this is too much love. I'm not a plush toy, I'm royalty. He responded with a soft growl. A cute growl. Don't think growling like a fuzzy baby lion is gonna let you cling to me for free. Purr. Oh no. He started purring. And it wasn't just any purr. This was the kind of soft, deep rumble that melted my tiny heart like butter on hot toast. All right. I gave up with a sigh, wrapped my arms around him and nuzzled into his squishy cheek. I'm melting. Ugh, you win, walking marshmallow. And then, like the little traitor he is, he wiggled free from my hug, slipped out of my arms, stretched like a diva cat and walked away. Wait, what? Didn't you just want to hug me? He looked over his shoulder and let out a short, irritated purr. I swear he just said, I'm done with you, clingy human. Seriously. I was dumbfounded by his mood swing. Anyway, that's enough drama for the morning. It's time to meet Papa. I jumped off the bed with all the grace of a startled squirrel and opened my chamber doors with purpose. Only to freeze. Standing tall just outside my door was Ravik. He immediately straightened and bowed slightly, his armor catching the sunlight. Good morning, my princess. I blinked. What are you doing here? Did Papa ask you to bring me to him? He smiled gently, kneeling on one knee. No, my princess. From today onward, by His Majesty's decree, I will be guarding you personally. I am your royal knight now. What? Ravik. My personal knight. Lavinia's POV. What? Ravik, the Grim Reaper of the battlefield, is going to be my royal knight? Like, my personal bodyguard? Right next to me? All day? Every day? Well, I can't believe it. You guard me? Personally? Like all day? Every day? I asked just to be sure I hadn't misunderstood and he wasn't talking about some other baby princess hiding behind my toy chest. Yes, my princess, Ravik replied, completely unbothered by my dramatic flailing and inner happiness. I shall remain by your side at all times, ensuring your safety from this day forward. A deep breath. Let's rewind. I used to be a salary woman with 70-hour work weeks and 3 plants I couldn't keep alive. Now I'm being guarded by the captain of the Black Knights, the most feared knights in the Empire. No, probably the whole continent. The guy who never shows mercy. The same one nobles whisper about like a bedtime story gone wrong. And he's going to protect me. A tiny, spoiled baby princess who hoards cookies and occasionally chews on her blanket. Sometimes, in the middle of playing or stuffing sweets into my mouth, I freeze. I realize I really am reborn. As the Empire's sole princess. The next empress. The imperial cinnamon roll of the century. This is insane. But don't you have, like, important things to do? I asked curiously, tilting my head. Slay monsters, terrify noblemen, stare meaningfully at blood-stained walls? He didn't even blink. Your safety is my most important task, Princess Lavinia. Beep. That was kind of cool, actually. I smiled, trying to look elegant and not at all like someone whose internal monologue just screamed, cool, 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 cool. Then, I will be in your care, Ravik, I said sweetly, placing a hand on my puffed-up dress like a true little princess. Ravik's lips twitched. Just barely. But I saw it. A faint smile. Emotion detected. He nodded silently. But something still bugged me. I tilted my head again and squinted. But why were you standing outside? You should have come in, you know. What if you caught a cold? Then a voice chimed in, warm and teasing. He was guarding you all night, my precious. I turned around like lightning and gasped. Grandpa. And before anyone could stop me, I zoomed across the room on my tiny legs and threw myself at him. Grandpa Thalion scooped me up with a laugh, spinning me once before cradling me close. Oh, my precious. My lovely. My moonlight and stars. My soft and squishy treasure. Grandpa rubbed his cheek against mine like a cat trying to mark its favorite pillow. Grandpa. I squealed, wiggling in his arms as he nuzzled me like a lovesick feline. That tickles. Good. Laughter is good for growing bones, he said seriously, now kissing my forehead, then my cheek, then my other cheek. I thought Papa would be here. I said with a pout. Your father's finishing up some important matters, Grandpa said, glancing at Ravik with a knowing smile. But I couldn't resist coming to see my little sunshine after such a scare. Yesterday my precious treasure almost got hurt. I nearly fainted. I'm okay now, I declared bravely, puffing up my chest. You healed me and Ravik saved me. Yes, he did, Grandpa nodded solemnly. And now he'll keep saving you every day. Isn't that reassuring? I nodded, then reached up and patted Grandpa's cheeks. But Grandpa. Yes, my moonberry? Why do you smell like apples? He paused, then grinned. Because I brought you pie. Pie. I gasped like he'd told me Santa Claus was real. He held up a small box with a ribbon. Fresh from the Navali kingdom. Your favorite. My stomach rumbled right on cue. Ravik blinked in surprise. I coughed awkwardly and looked away. Anyway, let's eat. Oh, a ho-ho. The crust. Face. Ishmai. It felt like I had just tasted heaven itself. A buttery, golden, warm piece of heaven, sprinkled with cinnamon and joy. Should I tell Papa to hire Navali's royal pie chef? No, seriously. I must. Papa would hire him in an instant. I know it. He once built me a private garden just because I said flowers were cute. Hiring a pie man? A mere flick of his imperial fingers. Poof. Endless pie forever. As I plotted my future dessert empire, Nanny hummed softly and gently combed my hair, tugging just enough to make my head wobble. Looks like our princess is in a happy mood today, she said with a smile. Of course I am, I said smugly, hugging Nanny like a warm pillow. I have pie. A knight. And a grandpa who gives me secret sugar before sunrise. Nanny chuckled. I see. Since you like Lord Thalion so much, why don't you write him a thank you letter? I'm sure it would make him very happy. Letter? But Nanny. I pouted. I don't know how to write properly yet. She patted my head gently. Then why don't you draw something instead? Draw. I mumbled. Nanny nodded and my eyes lit up. All right. I'll do it. Then I shall bring some colors, my princess, Morella smiled warmly. I nodded with the importance of a royal decree. Make sure to bring the sparkly ones. Grandpa deserves sparkles. Morella curtsied with a giggle and left the room. Emperor Cassius's POV. So, you're saying they wanted to terrorize me by kidnapping Lavinia? I said, my voice low and cold, the syllables cutting through the chamber like shards of ice. Fian didn't meet my eyes. Yes, your majesty. I could feel something dark coil inside me. Fully. Quietly. Like a blade unsheathing. Theon continued, I believe. They sought to shake the very foundation of the empire. By harming the princess, they'd strike at its heart, and at you. My fist clenched on the armrest of the throne. Grand Duke Regis stepped forward, face grim. And, it's a strike from the insider. I turned my full gaze on him, one brow rising. Insider. Regis gave a slow, bitter nod. There are whispers on the streets, growing louder by the day. They say an elf doesn't deserve to be the next ruler of the Illyrian Empire. That the blood of the forest should not taint the crown. He looked up and there was fury behind his eyes. So they decided to act. To end her. Before she could rise. How dare they? Those bastards, Theon hissed, jaw tight. They're the same ones, your majesty. The ones who have always resented your majesty's throne. I believe it's them. The same dogs who barked when you rose as the emperor. They are the ones who wanted war. They are from the ones who hate you and hate you as a ruler. A moment of silence stretched in the hall. Elf blood. So what? So what if she has it? She's my daughter. My daughter. And she will be the next ruler. As she should. I rose from my throne slowly. A simple motion, but the guards around the chamber immediately stiffened. Theon. Yes, your majesty? Triple the guard around her chambers. Anyone caught within 30 steps without clearance is to be executed. No questions. Yes, your majesty. And send word to Ravik. He is not to leave her side, not even to breathe. Understood. I sighed, slow and heavy, but it did nothing to cool the rage boiling in my blood. I could still feel it, burning low and bitter in my chest. And then, is Papa inside? Lavinia? The voice of light in this cursed empire. Yes, my princess. But His Majesty is in a meeting, the guard replied gently. I glanced at Thean, my expression softening just slightly. Thean, tell Lavinia I will come to her in 10 minutes. He bowed and turned toward the door. But before he could touch it, her voice rang again, higher, closer. Oh, but I wanted to give this drawing to him. I froze. Drawing? Did she draw something? Wait. My voice cut through the room like steel. Thean halted instantly. Then there was a pause. Later Ravik's voice, calm and coaxing. Princess, how about we come a little later? His Majesty will be done soon. Another pause. And then her small, sad voice drifted in, barely above a whisper. But I wanted to show my first drawing to Papa. Something in my chest cracked. Soft, clean. Like thin ice under a single step. I smiled. Of course she would want to show it to me. Her first drawing. Not her nanny. Not her maids. Not even her grandpa. Me. I guess. I shouldn't let her wait. Let her in, I said quietly. The great doors creaked open, and the tension in the room melted away with the soft padding of small feet against marble floors. There she was. My Lavinia. A scrap of paper clutched proudly in her hands. Her hair is in loose, slightly crooked curls. A smudge of blue crayon on her cheek. Papa, she announced brightly, holding it above her head. I drew our family picture. Emperor Cassius's POV. Emperor's memory. Papa. I drew our family picture, she said, her voice full of pride, her little feet dashing toward me with that infectious energy only she could carry. I turned just in time to catch her before she stumbled. A paper flapped in her tiny hand like a bird in flight. I smiled without realizing it and picked her up, settling her on my lap. Her hair smelled faintly of wildflowers and ink, and her cheeks were smeared with streaks of paint. I took the picture from her hand. It was a mess. A mess of color and odd shapes. The lines were crooked, the proportions utterly wrong, and the flowers looked more like clouds with legs. And yet, it was a masterpiece. Because in that picture, it was just the two of us. No one else. Just me and my daughter Lavinia, holding hands beneath a crooked sun and surrounded by red, gold and blue smudges she proudly called flowers. Look, Papa. We are holding hands, and I added flowers too. I couldn't speak, so I smiled. I see, I murmured, brushing a smear of green from her soft cheek. And just like that, it hit me. A voice I hadn't heard in decades. A memory buried so deep I'd forgotten it was mine. I pray to that Lord that you find happiness in the form of a child, my son. I wish you have a daughter who fills the emptiness in your heart. Her last words. The last words spoken by the maid who gave me life. A nameless woman who was dragged to execution by my father's dogs, for daring to give birth to me, his shame. She looked at me as the guards pulled her away. Her wrists were bleeding. Her dress was torn. And yet she smiled at me. I was 6. Too young to understand why she was saying those words. Too numb to know why she sounded so calm. Why her eyes were filled with love for a boy who would be left behind in a den of wolves. I never remembered her face again until now. Until this moment, holding my daughter in my lap. It's been nearly 25 years, and yet the pain burned like fresh embers. I forgot how soft she sounded. How warm. I forgot because I needed to. Because after that there was only the whip. Cold floors. Silent nights. Training, punishment, war. No warmth. No hands to hold. Just blood and rage. I realized love was weakness and hope was dangerous. So I stopped hoping. I stopped believing. And decided I never wanted a family. Never. I saw what came of that. Saw what love earned you in the imperial palace. Death. Torture. Chains. You don't cling to people in this place, not unless you want to dig their graves yourself. When Thean used to beg me to rest, I scoffed. Shut up and bring more documents, I'd snarl. I preferred the battlefield over the throne room. The sword over the cradle. Scars over tenderness. People like Regis, the Grand Duke, beloved by nobles and children alike. They were born to be loved. Cherished. Blessed. But not me. I had no right to yearn for anything more. I was raised with steel. I bled for every breath I took. I thought, I knew, that love was not for monsters like me. Papa. Her small voice pulled me back. She looked up at me with those bright red eyes. My eyes, expectant, proud, utterly unafraid. Do you like my drawing, Papa? I stared at her for a long moment. This child. She wasn't supposed to exist in my world. And yet here she was. Thought. Warm in my lap, trusting me with all her heart. I laid my hand gently atop her head, fingers threading through her golden hair. We shall hang it in our treasure room, I said softly. She gasped. Really? Her cheeks flushed pink with joy. It hit me like a blade to the chest. That smile. That innocence. It wasn't mine to deserve. And yet it was mine. She gave it freely. He chose me. This is my first drawing, Papa. I made more. Do you want to see them too? I gave her the most honest answer I could. Yes. I would like to see every single one my daughter drew. Morella, standing nearby, chuckled. Then I'll go fetch the rest our princess made. My daughter Lavinia nodded eagerly, still swinging her legs on my lap. And I just watched her. Wondering. When did this happen? When did I allow a child into my world? When did I let her curl herself around my heart like sunlight cracking through iron? It started with curiosity, didn't it? She was only 3 months old, alone in the abandoned East Wing. Forgotten like a mistake no one wanted to claim. I visited out of sheer impulse, to see why there is a baby voice in my palace. And when I saw her for the first time, she didn't cry. Didn't flinch when I looked down at her. She smiled. Like I was something worth smiling at. And from then onwards I watched her. Observed her. From a distance at first. I told myself it was nothing. A distraction perhaps. But every time she saw me, she reached out with those small arms. She babbled at me. Giggled. Crawled toward me without fear. Even as she grew, she never looked at me like the others did. She didn't see a monster. A tyrant. To me. And maybe, just maybe, that's when it began. The walls around my heart, fortified for decades, began to crack. Bit by bit. Until now there was nothing left but the truth. I, Emperor Cassius Devereux, once a man forged from rage and grief, found happiness. In a child. In my child. In Lavinia. My daughter. Maybe that woman, my mother, was right after all. Maybe that day she didn't just utter nonsense to comfort her son before dying like a criminal. Maybe she blessed me. Cursed me even. With a heart. Because ever since my daughter entered my life, everything began to shift. The silence no longer felt comforting. The throne room no longer felt like home. The sword in my hand felt heavier, as if it now had something to protect instead of simply to destroy. I never thought I'd know what it meant to be loved. Not feared. Not obeyed. Not worshipped. Loved. And now that I know the weight of that gift, someone dares to threaten it. Someone dares to look upon my daughter with schemes in their hearts. To test my patience. Toc if the tyrant has gone soft. Toc if the emperor who brought nations to their knees would hesitate, now that he has something precious to lose. Let them wonder. Let them whisper. Let them think I've grown gentle because my hands now carry a child instead of a sword. Because the truth is, they've made the gravest mistake of all. They've made her my weakness. But they forgot. A man like me doesn't lose because of a weakness. He kills for it. For the first time in my life I have someone I cannot afford to lose. And that is precisely why I will never let it happen. The world knows now she is my heart. And the world should tremble because when you try to take a tyrant's heart, you don't just start a war. You invite annihilation. Oh. Looks like the princess fell asleep. Theon's voice broke through the thunder in my mind. I blinked, my gaze dropping down to the small warm weight curled in my arms. She had indeed fallen asleep. Mid-sentence, mid-giggle, mid-pride as she tried to show me every single one of her absurdly colorful masterpieces. Her cheek rested against my chest, soft breaths fogging the gold buttons of my coat. I smiled without thinking. She was so happy today, Narina said, her voice gentle, a whisper wrapped in affection. Really? I murmured, brushing a stray strand of golden hair from Lavinia's face. It clung to her lashes, tickling her nose. Narina nodded, hands clasped before her. Yes, she was happy to receive Sir Ravik as her personal knight. And Lord Thalion brought apple pie just for her. She said it was the best day ever. I hummed in acknowledgement, shifting slightly so her head rested more comfortably against my shoulder. The warmth she left on me, it burned. Swiftly. Permanently. Did you remember something, Your Majesty? Theon asked. I looked at him, puzzled. What do you mean? Theon hesitated, then gave a faint smile. Your eyes. Today they look a little sad. But also warm. Like they've remembered something precious. I turned my gaze down to Lavinia. She wriggled in her sleep, letting out a small sound and nuzzling deeper into my chest, as if she knew we were speaking about her. I exhaled slowly, quietly. Yes, I said. I remembered her last words. There was silence. Her. Thien echoed, confused. I didn't answer immediately. Even Lord Gregor, sitting silently on his seat, seemed to stop breathing. I didn't look up at them. And then calmly, quietly I spoke. The one who gave birth to me. Stunned silence filled the room. Even Lord Gregor stiffened. But I didn't look away. I wasn't ashamed. I looked down at the sleeping child in my arms and smiled. Her last words were that I would have a daughter who would fill the emptiness in my heart. I closed my eyes, letting that memory settle in my bones. And I suppose, she blessed me that day. Lavinia's POV. It's been more than 10 days since I almost got kidnapped. I say almost because Papa made sure that almost is as close as anyone will ever get to touching me without being turned into ash. Literally. Since then many things have changed. For starters, I now have my own personal knight, Sir Ravik. He's always around me like a tall, grumpy statue with a sword, even when I'm just trying to sneak a second dessert. Not only that, but Papa added even more knights to trail behind me like shadows. They try to hide in the shadows like they're secret agents, but I always see them peeking behind curtains or pretending to be flower pots. One of them even sneezed when I was playing hide-and-seek. He sneezed so loud that my heart went thump-dump-thump. Not only that, Papa hired the pie chef from the Nivali kingdom for me. The famous one. His name is Chef Aloan, a tall, graceful elf with green hair, pointy ears, and a terrifyingly serious face when it comes to desserts. He treats every tart like a holy ritual. It's not like the old chef never made delicious food, but no one, and I mean no one, can make desserts like Chef Aloan. His blueberry tarts taste like summer dreams, and his mousse feels like kissing a cloud. Every day I get new pastries, cakes, puddings, and pies. If I ever go missing, check under the dessert table. But that's not all. Just like Papa said, he really did hang my drawing in his treasure room. The one I drew with hair, that looked like spaghetti left out in the rain. And not only that, he made a replica and put it up in the entrance of his imperial office. So now, every official, knight, ambassador, and terrified noble who comes to see him has to pass by my spaghetti-haired drawing. I was so embarrassed when I saw it, I hid behind Ravik's cloak for 10 minutes and Papa stood there proud like I won a gold medal for that picture. How can you hang that? I asked him, pointing at my scribble with a face so red I looked like a tomato. Papa only smiled proudly and said, because everything my daughter creates is a masterpiece. I guess I can't argue with that logic. Even if the eyes in that picture were uneven and the sun had 6 rays instead of 8. Anyway, I've drawn lots more now. One with Grandpa Thalion, who looked at it and cried like someone just handed him the meaning of life. Then he hugged me tight and declared, I shall show this to every elf in Nivali. Sometimes I wonder if he used to be a soap opera actor in his past life. The drama. The tears. The way he sniffled was like I just ended a 300-year-long elf war with a crayon. I also drew Nanny, Morella, Grandpa Gregor, Thien, Grand Duke Regis, Ravik, and even Osric. When I gave Osric his drawing, his cheeks turned bright pink like strawberries. I don't know why. Maybe my drawing was that good? But not everything has been cute or funny lately because the palace and the empire were still in chaos. Turns out the people who tried to kidnap me weren't from some evil villainous kingdom. Nope. They were from our own empire. Our own people. That means someone inside wanted me dead. Someone wanted to hurt Papa. Through me. So now, everything is chaos. Papa's fury? Well, it wasn't just dramatic. It was legendary. He's got every single noble under investigation. Like literal royal audits. You know how nobles used to walk around wearing fancy silk robes and gold-embroidered cloaks? Now they're all dressed like depressed librarians. Papa raised their taxes so high, I heard one count fainted just by opening his monthly bill. They call it the Wrath of the Emperor tax. He froze bank accounts, summoned treasury inquisitors, and made every noble family submit their ledgers. One baron tried to bribe the inspectors. Papa threw him in the dungeon. When that's not all. Papa made a royal decree that says, any noble who refuses to cooperate will be stripped of title and lands and invited to play fetch with the palace hounds wearing steak-scented perfume. It's poetic. Some say Papa's being ruthless. Some say he's lost it. But I know the truth that he's just scared and worried. scared something might happen to me again. So now the palace is fortress level protected. New guard rotations, magical wards from the royal mages, and even the laundry room is locked unless it's under high security washing protocols. I'm not kidding, Morella yelled because her uniform got held hostage by a rune lock. But despite all the noise, the fear, the tension in the air, I feel safe. Because Papa is watching. Protecting. And every time he looks at me I see the same thing in his eyes. He'd burn the whole world if it meant keeping me safe. And maybe, just maybe, I'm okay with that. And now, with my arms full of a basket stuffed to the brim with cookies, tarts and crunchy almond sticks, Chef Aloan called them elfish fingers, which sounded spooky but tasted divine, I marched toward the training grounds. Marshmallow trotted beside me, fluffing his pompous tail like he was royalty. Ravik of course followed too, looking like a brooding shadow knight from a bedtime story. It had only been a week since I last saw Osric, but it felt like months. After he'd stood so bravely that day, shielding me during the kidnapping attempt like a real knight, I don't know, something inside me changed. I guess I didn't see him as just a male lead of the novel anymore, that he was Osric.my friend who protected me. Osric. I waved one hand energetically. Osric was in the middle of training, his form focused and sharp as he wielded an actual real sword now. Not those wooden sticks he used to use like a pretend pirate. 11 years old and already swinging a blade like a miniature war god. Honestly, I was kind of impressed. The moment he saw me, his eyes lit up and he stopped mid-swing. Lavi, he called with a bright grin as he ran toward me. And then suddenly skidded to a halt like someone hit the emergency brakes on a horse. He straightened up and bowed low, all stiff and formal. I greet the only princess of the Ilarian Empire, he said solemnly. Huh? Wait, what? Why are you suddenly acting all formal? I blinked, then looked around. Right, there were a bunch of soldiers, knights, and even that one guy with the squirrel mustache watching us. I gave a royal nod, remembering I had an image to maintain. But as soon as I could, I reached forward and grabbed Osric's hand. His face instantly flushed pink, like someone had poured strawberry syrup all over him. Let's go, I said cheerfully. I brought snacks for you. He nodded wordlessly, still looking like his brain short-circuited. Together we walked to a nearby bench under a tree. Marshmallow plopped himself at our feet like a white marsh puff of dignity. Meanwhile, I caught Ravik standing nearby, arms crossed, glaring at the training knights like they were offending his entire bloodline. One knight fumbled his sword and dropped it. Ravik's eyes twitched. Another tripped during footwork. Ravik exhaled like he was trying not to combust. Then a third one tried to spin and ended up hitting himself in the knee. Ravik's hand creaked around the hilt of his blade. Honestly, if glares could kill, the training ground would be a graveyard. Ravik, I said, pointing toward the chaos. You can go there if you want. He blinked like I'd just offered him a vacation to heaven. No, my princess. I cannot. I cut him off. You don't have to worry, Ravik. Then with my very official toddler finger, I pointed toward a random bush nearby. The others are protecting me. Ravik turned slowly to the bush. The bush rustled. A helmet poked out. A knight sneezed. Then the bush froze, like it could pretend it wasn't being suspicious. Still, princess, I cannot leave you alone, Ravik said, clearly torn between his duty to me and his urge to yell at someone into proper sword stance. You'll only be 10 feet away, I told him firmly. If anything happens, I know you'll get to me before I can even say Papa. So go. Ravik's eye twitched. I will be back soon, princess. He turned stiffly and stomped toward the training ground, cracking his knuckles like he was about to lead a noble revolution. The knights noticed him and immediately straightened up. One even dropped his sword again in panic. Yes, you with the noodle arms, stand properly or I'll feed you to the dogs. I am sorry, sir. Stop apologizing and straighten your back. I giggled behind my cookie. He's so dramatic, I whispered to Osric, who was nibbling one of the almond sticks. He nodded. But he's also scary. True. Osric took another bite, then smiled at me with crumbs on his lips. Thanks for the snacks, Lavi. I beamed. You're welcome, Osric. While I was spending some quality time with my dear friend I didn't know. This very moment, innocent and sweet, filled with laughter and crumbs, would be the seed of a dangerous idea that would soon take root in someone's mind. Bye-bye, Osric. Good luck with your training. I called out, skipping backward dramatically like a stage actress taking her final bow. Osric chuckled and waved. Visit often, Lavi. Sure, I sang back, grinning before twirling around and dashing toward the dining hall. Lunch with Papa was waiting and I'd already missed snack time twice this week. Tragedy. As I skipped down the corridor humming a tune only I knew, I slowed to a halt. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted someone leaning casually against a pillar. Grand Duke Regis? He wasn't doing anything, just standing there with that infuriating smirk, arms folded, eyes lazily watching our direction like he was bored and done with swinging his sword at the same time. I felt a chill crawl down my back. Oh, I shivered involuntarily. Ravik, who had trailed behind me like a dutiful shadow, leaned down slightly. Is something the matter, princess? My eyes were still glued to Grand Duke Smirky McCreepsalot, who now turned and walked away as if he hadn't just been staring like some villain in a cloak. I dunno, I muttered. Just felt a weird shiver. Maybe she's cold. Morella said brightly, her crisis response mode kicking in like I'd announced a dragon attack. I'll bring something warm right away. And off she went like a meteor in a maid uniform. Wait, no, I don't need, I sighed. She's already gone. I shook my head and kept walking toward the dining hall, hugging my arms around myself just a little. Probably was nothing. Just the usual father watching his son training. But that smirk. It was the kind of smirk you'd see on a cat right before it knocked your teacup off the table. Why was he even looking our way like that? Actually, how long had he been standing there? I scrunched my nose. Nope. Not thinking about it. I had better things to do. Like lunch. The dining hall was buzzing. Not with people, just with me, because the second I saw the dessert tray I practically vibrated in my seat. Jelly. I shouted like I'd spotted a wild unicorn. The maids had barely finished setting the dishes before I launched my spoon into the air like a weapon of mass sugar consumption. I was swinging my legs under the table back and forth, faster than a pendulum on a sugar rush. The jelly, layered in sunset colors, wobbled every time I poked it, and it made me giggle like a maniac. Chef Aloan was a genius. A jelly wizard. A gelatin goddess. I was convinced she deserved a temple. My cheeks were stuffed, my mouth full, and I was humming and chewing at the same time. Multitasking at its finest. Across the table, Papa, His Majesty, the Emperor of the entire empire and probably the universe, watched me with the face of a man who had long given up trying to look dignified in front of his daughter. He leaned over, took a napkin, and gently wiped the jelly from the corner of my mouth with all the grace of a royal butler. I see you like this new chef's desserts very much, he said dryly, dodging a rogue jelly bounce. I smacked the table with both hands, not hard, just enough to make the jelly jiggle again, and declared with the passion of a tiny dictator, I love them too much, Papa. He raised an eyebrow. Too much. Too much, I confirmed, arms raised like I'd just won the Sugar Olympics. Should we be concerned? I don't think sugar is good for your health. Gasp. My spoon clattered to the table. The jelly wobbled in horror. My soul left my body and hovered above the ceiling. Papa, I said slowly, dramatically, like a heroine confronting her greatest tragedy, you're not canceling my daily desserts, are you? He said nothing. He just sipped his tea like a suspicious man plotting suspicious things. I swear, I said, pointing a jelly-covered spoon at him, if you take away my desserts, I will go on a hunger strike. A dessert-only hunger strike. Papa raised a brow again. That's not how hunger strikes work. I will march around the palace, I declared, holding banners, screaming slogans. No cake, no peace. He stared at me, blinked once, blinked twice, then snorty chuckled. Papa, I am serious. I slammed my tiny palm on the table again. Don't test me. He leaned forward with that lazy, amused smile of his and patted my head like I was a very loud cat demanding tribute. Then why don't you please me, he said, and maybe I'll reconsider your dessert privileges. Seriously, who says that to his daughter? Is he really my father or a vending machine with conditions? Fine. If that's how we're doing this, then I'll weaponize the only thing I've got. My cuteness. Papaya, please, don't cancel my desserts. I batted my lashes, made my eyes shimmer like teary puppy eyes, and imagined invisible sparkly stars shooting out of me like I was a magical girl in a drama anime. He just blinked and swatted the sparkles away with one hand like they were mosquitoes. You need to try your best, my daughter. What the heck? Did he just deflect my level 10 Adorabomb? Humph. You should be the one trying to please me, Papa, I pouted, crossing my arms with dramatic flair. Me? Papa asked. I nodded, still pouting. I received numerous presents from everyone in the Empire, except you. That got his attention. Papa blinked. Once. Twice. The glimmer of realization hit him like a rogue tax report. Then he turned and waved a maid over with all the seriousness of a man preparing for war. He leaned down, whispered something to her like it was a state secret, and she nodded with military precision before gliding away. Hey. Why is everyone whispering? I want to know too. Before I could crawl across the table demanding answers, Theon walked in, solemn as always, carrying a single piece of paper like it was the crown jewels. He bowed and handed it to Papa, who casually slid it across the table toward me. Here, he said. Suspicious. Very suspicious. I picked up the paper and looked at it. My eyes squinted. My soul squinted. Papa, I said slowly. Why are you giving me a map? Are you going to tutor me? Is this some new tutoring method? Do you want me to study geography first? He leaned back in his chair with the proudest smile known to mankind. Just point to one of the cities, he said. I'll give it to you. What? My spoon dropped. The jelly shivered. I almost choked on my own heartbeat. Papa. I don't need something like that. I frailed. What am I supposed to do with a city? He just tilted his head like a cat planning mischief. I see, he said thoughtfully. Oh good, he's listening. He finally understands I'm a normal kid who just wants dessert. Then let's give you an entire state. That's right. How could I forget that my great, glorious, slightly unhinged father is a tyrant who thinks everything should be done too extra. Other kids get cake. I get land. And that, dear diary, which I don't have but should probably start, is how I ended up having an entire state gifted to me by Papa, just because I wanted more dessert. No negotiation. No second thought. No sanity. One second I was pouting over jelly, and the next I was the owner of some land or something. Anyway, it's not like I mind, power is power, but still. A bit much, don't you think? As I was gently spooning more jelly into my mouth, like a responsible future ruler, a man entered the dining hall, bowed deeply, and spoke in that overly serious tone adults love to use when the situation definitely doesn't require it. Your Majesty, Grand Duke Regis has requested a private audience. Theon narrowed his eyes slightly. Perhaps it's regarding the princess's kidnapping incident, Your Majesty. Papa's face turned unreadable in that scary royal way. He gave a single thoughtful nod. I see. Then turning just slightly to the side he called, Ravik. Ravik appeared like a summoned shadow, calm, composed, and completely unaffected by sudden land ownership. Yes, Your Majesty. Escort the princess to her chamber. I'll return shortly. Understood. Wait. Hold on. I blinked. Papa. Papa paused at the doorway, half turning back with his usual calm expression. Yes. You're coming to sleep with me tonight, right? He tilted his head slightly, curious. Are you having trouble sleeping? No, I said casually, as if this was the most obvious thing in the world. I just miss you. And it was true. I really miss Papa. Ever since the kidnapping incident, Papa had been too busy. Meetings, reports, suspicious nobles to glare at. So he hadn't been coming to sleep in the chamber with me. And without him the bed just felt too big. Too quiet. Too blanket-y. Like the pillows were plotting. Or the sheets were trying to swallow me whole. Papa blinked. Once. Twice. Then he smiled. That rare, warm, heart-melting smile that made the room feel less like a grand, echoing palace and more like home. I will. And with that he walked off, his cape fluttering like he was off to conquer paperwork and scold suspicious nobles in dark corridors. I leaned back in my chair satisfied. Jelly in my belly. Estate in my name. And Papa is coming to sleep beside me tonight. Honestly, life was good. Which, knowing my luck, meant it wouldn't stay that way for long.